Hey, what's up, everybody? English Dave here with my co-hosts Raven, Rocket Mike, and Mercedes. What's up, guys?
Hey.
What up?
What up, Dave?
We are here to talk about episode 5 of Lovecraft Country, A Strange Case. Does anybody know? Hands up. Anybody know what that reference is? What book? It's not obvious this episode.
Yes, The Strange Case, Dr. Jekyll, Mr.
10 points to you.
Oh.
10 points.
Good
That is
job.
very true.
Yeah.
That is very true. This episode synopsis is as follows. After making the devil's bargain with William, Ruby steps into the charmed shoes of a white woman. A betrayal by Montrose unleashes Atticus's pent-up rage, leaving Letty deeply disturbed and sending Montrose into the comforting arms of his secret lover. We have 2 things confirmed in this episode, guys.
Yup.
Montrose's sexuality confirmed. We
Yup.
talked about that last week. And William and Christina, dun dun dun.
Dave, you were right.
I know, I was like, damn it.
We're never
Dave,
together.
I know, I said the same thing. I was like,
I'm just tired of it. I'm tired
Dave
of
was
it.
right. I guess he was right.
I'm sorry.
I was like, whatever. Moving along. No. You've seen it, fine.
I think the William Christina aspect goes a little deeper than what we realize, but we'll talk about that when we get there. The themes in this episode are metamorphosis. Metamorphosis of the literal kind to the emotional kind to the psychological kind. This talks about metamorphosis, and that's the main theme here, which I really liked. But I'll go round table. I'll start with you, Mercedes. Quick thoughts. What did you think of the episode?
I thought the episode went there, and it really went there and hit the, home run ball out of the park. I guess, I don't know why I'm surprised, but every episode they just push not even pushing the envelope, just diversity and just showing us different things and how it can be great. And it was just so, I don't know, they did it again. I was speechless at the end of the episode.
Mercedes is like, I don't know. I just don't know. It's just everything I don't know.
I mean, that's a great thing.
Well, Raven, what did you think of the episode? I like your background.
Thank you. I love this part.
That was a good shot.
It's my favorite shot, man. This shot, I was like, ah. But yeah, I think overall, this episode out of any of the episodes was definitely the most uncomfortable for me. I think on purpose. This episode was, I feel, meant to make you feel like you wanted to crawl out of your own skin, which in a way is a metaphor for the episode. That's what happened. So, I will say, I think emotionally, I felt the way that Ruby felt bursting through that suit.
Yeah.
Mike, I like your background too. I like the subtlety of the butterflies. I like it.
Just a little so. If you know, you know.
Yeah, all right. If you don't know, you don't know. Then why you listen to this podcast? What did you think of the episode?
I thought this was the episode that J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele were like, I'm just going to check if you are sleeping or not. Make sure everyone's paying attention. And they're just going to just shock the shit out of you right now.
Yeah.
If you felt like you were sleeping, yeah, this was it. Now, they also improved way more details in the gore. Like, I thought the decapitation in the second episode was a lot. And now,
Yeah.
when we got here, my jaw was down during one scene.
Oh, man.
They're like, we're going to play this out.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought this was just one scene after another that just was just for pure shock value. Not strictly for that, but obviously it was just more revelations, more secrets coming out. Everything kind of built up to this episode, and then we still have a long way to go come toward that final scene too.
I mean, we are at the halfway mark of the season, and yeah,
There's only 10 episodes? No.
Yes, only 10.
No.
No.
We are at the halfway
HBO's 10.
mark.
Yeah.
At least we
And
have
Damn it,
Rachel.
HBO.
This episode was intense, and like you said, Mike, they really upped some of the visual goals. It's funny you say about J.J. Abrams. Raven, J.J. loves his butterflies.
He does. Every show we've
Loves his
seen,
butterflies.
there's a butterfly reference.
Always with his butterflies.
Yeah.
I
Also, what I
thought-
forgot to say is that I did feel like, too, in this episode, this was like the, oops, you gave us a budget, man.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like, y'all fucked up now. This is
Y'all
like that
should've
episode.
Dude.
Like
What
y'all
did
done
they-
fucked up now. This
What
is what we're doing here, and I
Right.
respect it. Very ballsy.
Right.
Wow.
Right. No, I liked what they did in this episode a lot. My only issue, and again, this is like I was talking to Mike earlier. This is like a nitpick on the nitpick level, is, and it might not be a bad thing, but I feel like it doesn't take us further in the overall narrative, and we're halfway through the season. You know, because it's more of a Ruby episode. Because even in the Letty episode, we kind of still move the narrative forward, but this one doesn't. But I still appreciate the amount of time we get with Ruby. So for that, I let it off because we haven't had enough Ruby in this season.
I honestly didn't think I would get this as an episode.
No.
You know, I thought that it would be another season later or something where we would kind of
Mhm.
get more of Ruby's character. Just because from what we can tell, she's not a part of the main, you know,
No.
storyline. Like she's an accessory, if anything. You know, she's just
Exactly.
relative
Is
to
she,
it, but she's
though?
not a main character.
She
I mean,
this.
so far, you know.
Now
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
they
So far.
they just told you now she's definitely they're giving her
I
screen
mean,
time.
she threw herself into the middle of it now, you know. But also maybe that was the point. This episode is like, as of right now, you think of Ruby as someone that's completely separate from the story, but this is how she's a part of it too. You
Oh,
know?
no. Let's go off where we left off, right? We come back of this episode. Montrose killed Yahima, and I feel like, you know, you have to remember that coming into this episode.
Yeah.
Right. Is
Ugh.
that Montrose fucking killed
I was so
Yahima.
upset last episode, and then you get
Like, it's just
reminded
like-
of it in the beginning of this one.
Yes.
I'm like, Yahima! It still hurts.
And then
Barely knew
Ruby and William slept with each other. Now, you know, so like to start that off, Raven, I want to ask you first. Imagine waking up white.
I think my reaction would be pretty similar. You know, because at first, because I feel like most of the time when we watch, you know, body change movies or whatever, I feel like the reaction is always too calm. When I woke up, I would be freaking the fuck out, you know? And I felt like Ruby's reaction was pretty good to like waking up at, you know, in completely different skin. I really can't imagine what that's like, but I'd probably do something similar. You know, like I'd probably go speak to a manager or something, you know, instantly. I would just
Instantly
like
be a
go
Karen.
somewhere and be like, let me speak to a manager. And then
Raven would
just
be a
like,
Karen.
but no. See, I'd flip it on them because they would come over and then I would give compliments to all the stuff.
Oh,
See,
okay.
I've thought about this.
Interesting.
But yeah, you know, I think it's interesting, and I do like Ruby's reaction, and I kind of like her mini story arc within a story. You know, the story of her as a white woman and her evolving from going from last week or a couple of weeks ago where she was saying, oh, if more colored people just worked harder, that would solve all their problems. And that was really naive and like kind of ignorant of her to say, I thought at the time. So, seeing this time around and kind of her realization that that wouldn't necessarily fix the way that things are, I think was kind of a really cool way of dealing with that. And also the moment of the, you know, when she ended up in the black neighborhood, which is all she knows. Of course you'd go there,
Yeah.
you know, and I think it was a crazy moment, but it was also so true where it's like, you know, black people were still willing to help knowing that helping her is potentially dangerous, but people were still willing to be like, miss, are you okay? Instead of being like, outsider, you know? And then the police officers show up and instantly the first, you know, black guy they see, they're, you know, hamming up and abusing. And, she realizes her power in that moment too. And I was just like, I think it was a great way to show kind of like that whole realization in like a short amount of time.
Well, I think she does a good job of going through the stages of realizing, oh shit, this is not my body, to oh shit, this is a white body.
Yeah, because
You
she
know, those
got
are
on the
two
ground
separate
too. She
stages.
thought she was being arrested at first.
Yeah. You know, and then realizing, oh, if I don't speak up, you know, like when the policeman says, he's almost like putting words in his mouth. Did this boy molest you? Like, whoa, who said anything about that?
Yeah, like how do you start there? That was so
Like,
crazy. What a reach.
We went from 0 to 60 real quick.
This boy molest you? What?
Like, what the fuck?
not
Ready for that all day.
nudged into you. Like
Right?
just
Like,
full extreme.
Just fully just raped you.
Just
broad
on the
daylight
sidewalk.
on the
Broad
street.
daylight
Yep.
on the sidewalk. Because that's how
Right
they
there.
get down over here. It's like,
and,
what the
and Sadie's, I
hell?
want to ask you, okay, so you're in this position where you're a black woman who's now white, and this situation's happened to you, only to be taken back to William, and now he's ripping the skin out of you. How was that? How was seeing that for the first time when he's just like, because like I love how he sets it up. It's like the top on the floor, and it's almost like a American Psycho setup, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Like he was ready. He was
Yeah,
like, "Come here,
seriously.
boo.
We all knew
Let
it
me
was
get
coming
you." Yep.
just like, what do you make you feel like this? That ripping out of their body, like, do you see the eye inside the skin?
Yeah.
Yo, that moment when you see the eye inside the skin underneath, I was just like, ugh.
Oh,
I
it's
was-
so nasty.
I would
All
say
of like this episode is so nasty.
yeah, they're definitely giving the boys a run for their money in terms of gore, you know? Like I feel like both effects teams are like, you know, let's see what they're doing cuz like it's really bloody and I love it. So like keep competing with each other because it makes it good for us as viewers.
Makes it look so real too. So
And Sadie's William confirms what you talked about, the portals in this scene.
I know. I'm very excited. William is a very interesting character because you want to, you know, like believe that he's a good person and he's not going to like double cross her. But then watching that scene, I was just like, that was just so hard to watch. Like she's getting over the trauma of being a white woman. And now she's going through this excruciating pain. And now she's got this guy like with a knife over her and he's like, don't resist it. Are you what? Excuse me, can I speak to the manager? This is not the experience that I signed up for.
All right.
No, so that scene, I thought it was I loved it. And then it was so subtle too, because when she walks in, like you see the tarp, but like nobody even mentions it. Like she doesn't even notice it until like obviously we notice it.
Her.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, he kind of speaks to her about, we get some exposition moving us forward about Hiram Epstein and the portals and the fact that these portals exist. So now what you were talking about, Sadie's last week, and William worked with him. You know, this we're going to talk about it later on, but I have a theory on William and Christina here. But Mike, I want to talk to you about Montrose and Tick. You know, an ongoing theme of this show is generational trauma, right? Mm-hmm. And the trauma between Tick and Montrose comes to a head because Tick instantly knows Yahima didn't leave. You know, how was that just hammering at his dad? Oof.
So now that all that information has been collected, it's starting now to see where all that rage kind of came from both of them. You know, he was talking about how he got, you know, abused when he was a kid, and that was just being built up. And he was a much skinnier kid back then. And it was the war that brought this rage in him and at least allowed him to get it out finally. And obviously he doesn't know the truth yet about his real dad, which is very apparent now. But now seeing like the reason why he beat Atticus when he was younger, you know, suppressing his real person of who he is, you know, and also the fact that I'm sure it's not easy being a homosexual black man at that time too. It's probably even more so. He's like, I absolutely can't allow that. And so he's just holding everything back and just, you know, pushing it onto his own son. And so, because with all that thought was what you had to think about when you see Atticus just deck him. You think it's coming out of nowhere, but no, this has been a long thing boiling up in his head for a very, very long time. And now it all makes sense. Now it all comes back around. So
I love that moment because you see that rage in Tick, you know, and it's that rage that you see in a lot of men and a lot of black men. It's that rage that is generational trauma that has been built up, that was beat into him, right? It's, you know, I'm at that age right now with my wife where we discuss, you know, when we have kids one day, how are we going to raise them? What are we going to do? You know, I grew up where my mom used to discipline me by hitting, but I'm like, do I want to do that? You know, because there's some trauma that comes with that I might not want to, might want to deal in a better way. You know, not to say that, you know, Mom, you are wrong. It's just that we keep on the same cycles if we don't think of better ways each generation. And I think that narrative between Tick and Montrose plays on that. Because, you know, you understand that Montrose cares for his son. And he's doing what he believes is right? But
he's doing the best that he can.
Right? But is it the best, or is he being selfish because he doesn't want to deal with his demons? So he takes, you know, like every generation, you know, your parents, as parents, you got to realize that, okay, when I'm doing what I'm doing for my child, is it really for my child, or is it because I don't want to deal with it?
Right.
You know, there's a interesting question that this show brings. Another interesting part, Raven, I want to talk to you about this is when, you know, Ruby goes for the job interview, right? It you know, I think one thing that we as black people realize is that there's that duality that we have, right? There's what we call the white voice, right? Where it's like you're going for a job interview, you got to put your white self on, and she's literally doing that. And with this job interview for her, how did you feel about that? Like, as a black person being white at a job interview, like, how you can just be who you are, right?
Minus the literal white skin, I've definitely, had to do the same thing, at interviews. I used to work
Tie your hair
retail
up, Raven.
and work retail management. Yeah, I had to put my hair in a bun and, speak a certain way, carry myself a certain way, wear certain clothes, knowing that if I didn't do all these things, I definitely wouldn't get the job, let alone it was already going to be hard for me to get the job. So, and I'm going through these things in the 2000s, so in the 50s, where there can only be one, especially as even a female, if you go into a job, even just being a female, there's a whole nother, there can only be these many females, and then there can only be this many people of color, especially women, so I definitely felt that whole scene. It fully resonated with me. And then her going in, I want to say white face and white skin, her doing that, I felt like you could feel the uncomfortability, because she's dancing around certain topics. You have to pretend, you have to act a certain way. You have to pretend that you're not from South Side of Chicago. And I did love the way that she portrayed it all overall. And I loved the moment of the manager looking at her resume and being like, she's overqualified for the job. But literally had the exact same resume when she's gone in every other time. The only difference before was her skin, her body type, so
instantly she's a manager.
Yeah. Oh, and the management position. What? So I did love that, because I feel like it's so true. And, I don't know if it happens for everybody, but me as a black female, I've definitely had it happen where I went into a job, I was qualified or overqualified, didn't get the job, and then somebody else I knew, just started, had no experience at all, got the same job I was applying for, maybe getting paid more, so it's definitely something you feel. And I think to, put that moment on screen and portray it in this way is something that I appreciate in the show, because I think it's too often that gets like overlooked, because it's everyday racism and everyday subtleties that leads to years, generations.
That's true. And to carry on with that conversation, like she started, bonding with the other workers there, the other white women there. Sadie's on talk to you about this one. There's that side of you where you're around people saying things and you don't, you know it's wrong, so you want to say something and speak up, but it blows your cover. And I been in an uncomfortable situation with the women like, oh, let's go on safari,
like
let's go and hang out on the south side.
Well, yeah, because you have to be, because it's a workplace situation, it's definitely called for like being HR appropriate. So you definitely have to be politically correct, even when you are correcting somebody for their racial ignorance at the workplace. So yeah, that's like, it's a double entendre sometimes, because it's like, you just want to slap the shit out of that person, because it's like, how could you say this at work with all these people here? But then you can't even do that, because you still have to be like, well, let me educate you properly on how to not be this way. And so it was really interesting to see that dynamic play out in a situation where there is no HR, where there is nowhere for you to speak up if there is workplace harassment, or if you are being, mistreated by your coworkers, or if they're making you do, like in Tamara's case, like she's, why wasn't she at her counter? Because all of her white coworkers made her do their jobs, and the white privilege it brought. But I also felt for Ruby, because in that whole scene, it's like, girl, you got to give me something. Like when Tamara was telling her what her qualifications were, or lack thereof. It's like, wow, that's kind of, it is really like a slap in the face. Like, this girl just applied on a whim, and literally, like, I don't even, what? And then when you look at the other scene, when you see all of Ruby's accolades and accomplishments, you totally feel for her, and you understand where that venom comes from when she's, and on the flip side, some people are going to say, she should have been nicer. But I mean, would you have been nicer in that sort of situation if you were going for your dream, and then realizing the person that got it above you was just like, not even, it was a joke hire?
I think it also speaks to the idea that how, people look at the time, white people looked at black people like, I don't care, we just needed a black person,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
like we don't value you for your qualifications.
Yeah,
we value
well,
to
you
hit a
definitely
quota.
don't want a strong qualified black woman if you're gonna
No,
have any.
she might move up.
No.
She might
You know,
have
you
aspirations.
want a broken horse, sadly.
Right.
You know, you want somebody that's not going to fight back, somebody that's not going to complain and bitch when they're being harassed. You don't want someone like Ruby who walks with her head up and, you know, is confident.
True.
You definitely don't want that, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that that's interesting too. It's like, you know, you hire the person that you feel you can control and mold more. And I think that that's the truth of it. I don't think that, you know, it definitely wasn't her resume, as we obviously saw in this episode.
And it speaks to it because it almost like you're using her as an example, because later on the manager even says we're going to fire her. So it's almost like you can then say later on to your bosses, you know, we tried hiring black people, they're not good enough, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So she becomes that example to use. You're like,
Yeah.
well, you see, this is what happens when we hire black people. And it's like, well, you're not hiring based on qualifications. And that's what we've spoken about before, where it's like, as black people, we're not asking for special needs, a special case or handouts. We're just asking just to look at our resume.
Right.
And base it on that. And that's it. You know, judge us in a fair If somebody has a better resume than me, fine. I don't care if they're black
Let
or
them
white
have
or
the
whatever.
job.
You know,
Exactly. We just want a seat at the table, just like
Yeah.
everybody else.
So I want the options for it.
And then when I'm at the table, don't spotlight me.
Right.
Like, don't then spend the entire night, like, you know, interrogating me and then wondering why I'm uncomfortable. Like,
Seriously.
it doesn't make sense.
Seriously. Mike, we finally find out, Ruby finds out at least, that everything comes with a price. And William asks her to go and break into Captain Lancaster's office. I love the sequence where he's like, I got you something. And he opens, you think it's going to be a fancy dress.
The decor on that box too. I'm like, oh, this is going to be something nice. The box is almost nicer than what's inside, actually.
That did hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh.
Damn. But when we go inside, when she finally breaks in, we find some interesting things there, Mike. Imagine being trapped in a closet with this person who's half alive with a tongue cut off.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yo,
first.
that whole
But whose side was he on? You're being mutilated. How you ratting me out? What?
yeah,
I'm like-
I'm trying to help you, bro.
Right?
like it's already over for you, buddy. Like it's sorry. And that's why I understood why she was like throwing up. Like,
yeah, it wasn't apparent that his tongue was cut out. I thought
His tongue was like flapping around
lit,
between the
you know,
fingers.
oh,
could you imagine? That's always. First of all, do you remember as a kid when you would like play fight with your cousin and you'd be like this, and then they would lick your hand?
Yeah, and they lick your hand.
And like
that
that
was my
was
move.
always the worst. That's always the worst feeling. So I could just imagine.
That's technically what that guy is. Like, that's
Right.
the rest of his life.
don't touch me.
He's the one who licks the hand. Nah,
I licked you. Oh, this was
Mike,
great.
so Mike, did you notice Lancaster when he's putting on his shirt
Oh
on?
yeah.
He had a darker torso. I don't know if it's a black man's torso or just a darker torso.
Yeah,
Definitely
It's like
wasn't his.
Because I didn't know if it was
Frankenstein
like
shit.
like a pause in the metamorphosis. You know, it's like
Right.
I'm just gonna stop it right here. You know, like,
That definitely wasn't his. That's funny.
but it's like we were talking about before when you talked about the scientist who was using several people for different body parts, and then you see
Baby head.
yeah, baby head. You know, so I'm like,
Hiram
okay,
Epstein.
this is starting to paint a
Yep.
picture.
Still haunts my dreams.
Which makes sense. Like, it makes sense that he was so into metamorphosis in that previous episode with Letty's story. We see all those mutilated babies. So it's like, I guess that he went full circle. He got, he got to where he needed to go.
And is it me or is it just the actor that it just seems like he has a tiny head already? You know, he's got a big
Which
body
actor?
and a tiny head.
I know. This is like they've been taking cues from Umbrella Academy, right, with the different body.
Right.
Well, it's done a lot better in this show, thankfully.
But I also think
Doesn't
this is
look like a
leading
book
up.
bag.
You know, every episode kind of plays on an old school science fiction / fantasy novel, right? I think a future episode is going to play on Frankenstein, which is touted as one of the original science fiction stories. And I think that's what we're seeing there, the body mutilation. I think we're seeing the Frankenstein thing. Even the guy in the closet, it looked like his neck was different color. Or he looked like he had
Yeah, it
stitches or
was.
something as well.
They were messing with him. They were doing some
They were
stuff.
like parts that were like mixed and matched.
They're
for
just
sure.
acting like there's nobody in the closet. Like they're just like, yeah, like so casually while he's like,
And they just hear it all the time. They just talk over it.
like, yeah, whatever. Like, why is he?
But like, why even keep making noise?
Ooh, I just had a thought. Maybe he's
Why
got
even
like,
bother?
maybe his body parts, or he's got like special powers that you cut it off and you can like need it every few hours where he's got to stay alive, right? I don't know, because that captain needs that body for a reason. It's like
I don't know. I feel like from the way that he was trying to rat out Ruby, I'm like, maybe he wants to be there. I don't know. I don't know what type of sick shit.
Like a gimp, kind of.
I don't. Maybe. I mean, or maybe it's like a religious thing. Maybe he believes that if he
if I give you this, you give me something else.
Yeah, maybe it's like some type of sacrifice. Because it just seemed like, why wouldn't you look at Ruby like, yo, save me, take me down? Instead, he was like, yo, cops, she's in here. So,
yeah, maybe he's like, yo, cops, if you catch her,
this class is taken.
I can be. You can set me down.
Free. Exactly.
Let me down. She can replace me. She can replace me.
He was trying to get brownie points and
cut her up.
Yeah,
right, brownie points.
In any way, shape, or form possible. Like, because
that's racist.
I don't know if you remember when she first
brownie points. You're an idiot.
No pun intended. Oh man, no, but he really, like, when she puts her hand over his mouth, he first tries to be like, "Please save me," and she's like, "Shh." But then he gets mad at her, so I think he's like, "Yo, somebody's in here, save me."
He might think she's cute.
Still got my tongue.
They haven't cut. They didn't cut everything off yet.
Right. Well, I still got it.
The lady said, "Come find me."
They know where to find me.
I can hide in the closet.
I'll be right here,
hanging on display,
hanging around.
Like, listen, it's a bad time. You got your hands all over me.
On that note, let's log off.
Okay.
Yes.
Come back on again.
All right.
So yeah, we get a moment with Montrose towards the end of the episode that really, again, speaks on the metamorphosis storyline. We get confirmation on what we've been suspecting the last few episodes. And Raven, what did you think of the whole scene where Montrose literally and figuratively kind of like becomes his true self?
I was really surprised. I was appreciative that happened, because I think, again, it's another subject that isn't really touched on often. And there's so many layers and levels to the whole thing, so I'm going to try to keep it short. But I think that, the first time that we see their interaction, it isn't romantic at all. No. It's really like uncomfortable and like burly and gross, and it's to Frank Ocean, which I don't know, it's hit or miss. But yeah, I felt like, just the whole thing, like after it happens, he doesn't kiss him. Montrose doesn't kiss Sammy, which I felt was like a big thing too. There are men still in real life to this day that feel like if you have sex with a man but you don't kiss them, you're not gay. Yeah. So, and this is a very real thing.
Doesn't Sammy speak on that later on and says like, "Oh, we haven't kissed," or something like that?
Yeah.
There's a line.
Well, his friends basically bring it up. His friends are like,
yeah.
"Honey, they haven't even kissed on the lips," kind of thing. Like they're not even that serious. Which is the truth. It's like, Montrose is ashamed of who he is, of, what he's into. And a lot of that has to do with, who he is. Being a black man, that's not acceptable. His dad
beat him because of it.
Exactly. And then he beat his son because of how angry he was at his own life. It's when you keep things like that suppressed, when you stay in the closet, it makes you resent the things around you, drives you to drink. So I felt like I did appreciate, the way that all of this was portrayed, because I think that you really start to understand Montrose a lot more, as much as you don't want to, because you're like, this guy's a dick. It makes sense, And I felt like the whole club scene was amazing to me. I'm happy that this show is portraying that side of the 1950s. The gay community was, it was completely different than it is now. The gay community, it was almost like speakeasies, a gay club where, you could be arrested for being gay and at a gay club in public back in the day, So the people that were going to these parties and going to these events were really risking their lives, by going to these things, but they had to be their true selves. So I did love that we are seeing this side of it. I noticed Shangela, there's a lot of greet.
I was like,
Right?
oh,
I was like, ew, Shangela.
so you come so far, girl. I'm so proud of you.
Right? So, there are trans activists and, trans actresses in the show that are relevant now, which I loved. But I think that overall this episode, it shed a light on a lot because, ultimately it was about being one person and then being in another, being in a different skin than you identify with, and then kind of coming into your own, like breaking that shell. And I think the moment on the dance floor with Montrose finally, dancing and enjoying himself, it's pretty much the first time we've seen him smile at all in this show, and he's surrounded by beautiful queens, and I loved like the way it was shot. I loved, just the whole sequence. And I felt like you also felt relieved for him, as audience member watching it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
I love
definitely
about
appreciated the whole.
It was such a beautifully shot scene, that ballroom scene. It was honestly like you could feel the sigh of relief for like that breath that he was like holding in for so long, and he was able to just exhale. And it was just so cathartic and moving. So,
and John Hudson Odom, oh my God, he's so beautiful. Like Sammy is so beautiful, and I felt like just everything, I felt like every drag queen was portrayed in a way that was beautiful, and it wasn't in a way that was exploitative, if that makes sense.
I liked, throughout the whole sequence and leading up to it, I liked Montrose where he's just completely silent, just sitting there. Everyone is talking around him, right? And he's just silent, almost like
he's literally torn
my
and
son
beaten.
My son beat me, and he didn't even fight back when his son beat him. Montrose can hold his own. He would fight back normally, but he believes he deserves it. And that's what I like about this episode is that through all of that, and you feel for him, you're like, yes, Montrose, you have your own, but you still don't forget what he did.
No.
And one of the things I like about this show is that I tend to have issues with this, and when other shows that have predominantly white cast and you have a black person in there, the black person is written as too perfect, yes, we're perfect black people, we never make mistakes, we're always right and everything like that. And this show shows that we're also human like everybody else. Even in our best situations, we still have our worst situations. I can be happy for Montrose and still not love what he did and hate what he did at the same time, because that's what people are, are complex like that. And I love that this show does that. Speaking of complex characters, Mike, I want to quickly backtrack a bit and talk to you about Letty and Tick. I love that moment where Tick says, I didn't think my father's anger was in me, but I found it in the war. Oof.
Yeah.
Like I felt that moment, and then her fear of him. Let's talk about that, right? She was holding that bat, like ready.
She was holding that bat tight. She was about to fuck Tick up.
She had
was
Letty
like,
stick.
Right.
That's them just getting more and more confident as the series goes. She's like ready to stomp out there. I fell for that, and that's what I was referring to too. Like when he was that whole moment that just kind of came so sudden when that first happened. No one expected that. But now learning all about his backstory and learning about his Monrose's backstory, this is exactly what I was referring to when he was talking about building up this rage. It came from the war. It's hard to remember. He was this nerdy, skinny kid back then that everyone's so surprised when they see him now. They're like, that's Atticus, the same kid? So he had no way of defending himself. He probably never even spoke up against his dad at the time. So naturally, he just took it all and then learned to grow some confidence and learn to defend himself because he had to. His life depended on it. And now bringing this knowledge back home and realizing, you know what, I think I can use this finally. I don't want to, but just that moment when you realize like this guy has done enough right now. He's lost everything that we were trying to build up for. These pages that are apparently lost, not really knowing the true thing of, what he did with her at the end of that last episode. So, man, it's like, you're conflicted. Is it right that he did this? Obviously, it's all justified. And you end up feeling like him, like you don't want to fear him. This is a nice kid from the like around the corner, and he's still that guy. This isn't who he is.
when he says, please don't be scared of me.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I was like, oh.
I'll try not to be, bud.
It's something that I always think is like.
I felt so bad for him, but I was still scared.
Like, all right. Like, I would never like the idea.
Oh no, I'm still gonna keep my distance though. Yeah.
Like, I would never like the idea of my wife being afraid of me.
Oh no.
No, of course not.
You know, even if he didn't do it, right? Just to see that rage, and you can tell he's scared of his own rage because he was scared of having his father's rage. Right, and when he said, "I found it in the war," he's still dealing with that war shit. With like, there's some
PTSD from the war is very real.
A lot of real things from there. Yeah, it's true. And I love that moment where, he says to Letty, "I'm just trying to look out for my own. Isn't that worth it?" or something along those lines. And that's a very telling question because it's like, yeah, but that's what these white people are saying.
Literally, that's the excuse that they use. That racist use.
It's like
I'm protecting mine,
Yeah, it's like.
But if you're creating the threat, then,
this kind of goes along the same. We're going to talk about fantasy here. Some story that has to do with the magic ring. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but the same principle.
I wonder.
Taking this power that was in the hands of evil people and thinking that you can control it for your own, and thinking that won't happen to me. I know myself better.
Yeah,
it's that same kind of conflict. Oh, let's use this power for ourselves against the evil people. It never turns out that way.
I mean,
it's interesting for Tick. It's interesting for Tick because I'm like, Tick, I don't know, because maybe you should listen to Letty. Like you can't.
You should always listen to Letty.
Right.
This is a power we don't understand.
Everyone should listen to Letty. Like I'm gonna start listening to Letty in my everyday life, just like affirmations from Letty.
Mercedes. So confirmation when Ruby catches Christina, or I should say, William turned to Christina. You were Christina this whole fucking time. I love that. She says that.
I mean, that's the perfect reaction.
Yeah,
he was the audience in that case.
We slept together. That would have been very valuable information to know.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about when Christina says to her, who are you, uninterrupted. I feel like that's part of the reason what leads to Ruby doing what she does to the manager. Especially after seeing what the manager tries to do with Tamara. And I love that it doesn't go too far. It's just gross enough.
Just enough.
Just enough. It also makes you wonder.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say it's just enough to make you be like, "Ooh, that was mean." Oh, don't hurt. Like, cause I don't know anyone who would just see a sodomization and just be like, no, it's whatever. Like, that's not an easy thing to watch. But then it just comes full circle with the line of like, I just want you to know that your bitch did this to you. And I was like, you did try to rape one of us. So yeah, you do deserve that. So I love how it was just like that very thin line.
But then it's just like her skin dripping off while she's doing it.
Every time.
It was really hard to watch. I don't think I actually did. Like I watched the first 2-3 seconds and was like, oh, this is where this is going. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna look like at the corner of the screen, like bottom right. I'll get the generalization of it. Like even the volume was a lot. It was a lot.
She was literally going in. She's like,
yep.
Yeah, that was.
Like, he's gonna die. How can he live from that?
I mean, who wants to?
All I'm saying is it's not gonna always be a perfect
you've
got just ramming it in. You're gonna
she
hit
missed probably most times. Yeah, this is just
you're hitting everything.
Those are bloody shoes.
Ooh, like the song accompanying
soundtrack, amazing.
Yeah, I did love that. Like
this is Red Bottoms.
I felt like I read a couple of articles and it was like hit or miss with that moment. People were like, some critics are like, no, I didn't like that moment. I felt like it took me out. For me, I was like, oh, like it was cool for me. I love Cardi B, so
me too. Yeah. She's stupid.
I was like, those are bloody shoes.
There's a part of me, and this is one of my theories. There's a part of me that thinks through manipulation of character, they are setting up maybe Ruby to be like almost maybe a villain, like a Magneto.
She could be.
Where I understand where you're coming from.
She just has bad methods.
But it's just like, ooh.
Yeah. She's going to be the one that we hate to agree with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're going to be on her side. We're just not going to either admit it or we're not going to openly be on her side. But secretly, we're like, yeah, you got the right.
I was for the sodomization. That was a good punishment for rape, you know, and then the whole
Like, I was-
name calling. But
Yeah.
then, you know, I could have done with like maybe three less of those like pumps. Like maybe like you could have just,
right.
you didn't have to hit that.
I feel
Maybe
like
just one
That
and
can
leave
count.
it. You know, one,
feel like by
leave
the
it,
third-
walk away.
right.
I put
And
my
you felt
foot in
like-
your ass, you know, and then dip,
Here's
you
the
know.
thing. You physically abused him, and then you flip him over, and now he's got to look at your face being mutilated, like turning into what? Like,
I don't know what's
that's
worse, because you turned around to see that. Looking back at
Exactly.
you.
He's like, I don't know if my butt hurts anymore because my brain hurts. Like,
It all hurts.
Your skin just fell on my face.
exactly.
Ray, you just got skin chunks on your body, too.
And then-
You really don't know what just happened to you.
Imagine the person that has to find that. Like, they're gonna find the guy with tied up and then the skin on the
And
floor.
skin.
Like, what
Someone's got to find out.
happened
The
here?
fuck?
He's gonna say he
happened
was
here?
mauled by a beast or something.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah,
gonna
gonna
make
make
no
his
sense,
shit.
but they're gonna be like, that's fine, man. You don't have to talk about it.
That guy's life is over. They're like, yeah.
You know, you,
no.
begin, you begin to question though, like Ruby. She kind of by the third, fourth one, she was like enjoying this.
Too
She was
much.
just, like had those eyes.
Because
was
it's
like,
also
"Whoa,
like, it isn't,
whoa."
you know, like, I get your frustration, but he's not, you know, the
I was like,
cause.
he
of-
technically
yeah.
didn't rape her. She got away.
But it's not even that. It's
You
like
find
it's like
yourself making excuses for the guy in the scene,
Right.
and then you're like,
You just
oh.
feel
Like,
icky.
you know
I
it.
feel like the best way to describe it is like you feel icky for like the whole, because like you're just morally conflicted because you know a part of you is like sodomization is never okay. Then
Right.
you're also like
but
this guy's an asshole.
And
is an
she's
asshole.
been through
You
some
know
shit.
she's been
Yeah,
through
right.
a lot. We
This
get
guy's
it.
several
You know?
assholes now.
And then you start thinking. Exactly, this guy's generational assholes. Like he's a metaphoric asshole. But I had also I read an interview with the actress Wunmi Misaka.
Yeah.
Mosaku.
Wouldn't we just she's just
Wunmi
Wunmi.
Mosaku.
Yeah, she's
Sure.
a girl. She's
Yeah,
a best.
Ruby. So the actress, she said that this was like really hard for her to portray. Like it was really difficult for her to play this whole part. She had like read it. She knew it was gonna happen like way before, you know, the day came to be. But she had also said that like it was really uncomfortable because she felt like she identified a lot with the interrupted side of it, and she felt like, you know, as a woman that, you know, as a black woman too, and I think she's British, right? She's
She's from England.
yeah, she grew up in Manchester or something. But with that being said, she said that her whole life she kind of kept things hidden and kept things reserved and felt she had to act a certain way and be a certain way, you know. So she really sided with the interrupted part. But she said that she, even, you know, as a woman in her real life, has never been uninterrupted, and having to channel that anger and that rage was something that was really difficult for her to do. You know, because she was like saying that, you know, to get to the place where you're able to even act out this role, you know, where you're sodomizing someone with a heel was really difficult for her. But I think she she killed it. And even Jamie Newman, the woman that did White Ruby, I felt like both of them did a really good job. I fully believe that Ruby was inside
Yes.
you know, I really believe that Wunmi was inside Jamie Newman the entire episode.
Agreed.
So I felt like from both actors, they did a really, really good job. Actresses.
What I loved about that moment as well, though, it also speaks to, you know, what they call the tools of the master, quote that phrase, where, you know, as slaves of a certain type of era or save a certain kind of environment, we only know what they teach us, right? So we're taught violence, and so we only know how to get our emotions out through violence, because that's how it was taught to us, right? And you know, and that's what this Ruby moment shows. The only way she can release her frustration is through violence.
Do what
because
they
that's-
did to us.
Exactly. And so the cycle continues. You know, where it's this generational thing where it's like lack of imagination, because we only do the things that we are taught to do. We're not thinking outside of the box to kind of find other ways, and it kind of speaks on that, and I kind of love that. And again, it's also the same thing with Montrose. You know, he only knows what to do to his son what his father did to him, and then Tick only knows to do what his father did to him, because, you know, when you're angry, you hit something. You know, when you want your way, you hit something. You know, like, these are the things that keep on going, and nobody's oblivious to this. We're all human. We all are, you know, we all are examples of our upbringing. You know, and that's what this part of this narrative is. Raven, the end. Tick has this dream singing his great ancestor again, and he's been trying to translate this text, and he wakes up to die. I don't know if it's die or just DIE. I don't know, because there's some
We don't
dots in
know.
between.
Yeah.
We don't know.
They left it.
Yeah, it's someone's name, like Sir David England Esquire.
Or it could be die, a Korean word. You don't know, guys.
It's
We don't
David is English.
Yeah.
know. We have no
Like,
clue.
wow, we've deciphered that
But-
pretty quick. Okay.
Saying
Yeah.
he calls Jair again. He's like,
Yeah.
you were right. Dun dun dun. What does
Yeah.
it mean? What does it mean? Are we gonna see her?
I'm excited to
come
finally
Gotta
see this
get
damn
burned.
connection to this girl. Like, just
Right?
show me what it is. I'm tired of it. Y'all keep
How does she
hinting at
know?
this girl, and I keep forgetting about it. I don't care. I don't care
What does
about
it
her.
mean?
So hurry up and show me why I care, because right now I don't. So I just don't
What do you-
need it.
Clearly,
I don't
she
need
told
it.
him something.
I'm
that
proud of the
connects.
actress. She's come a long way, but like, what are you doing? You know? So I'm hoping that next episode, because I feel like the way that it ended, I'm hoping that means, okay, now next episode,
Yes.
this is what the fuck we're talking about. Well, he finally told Letty about her, so I
Which
feel like
I thought was great.
we're
I was
finally
like,
going to. That was a good moment, which you know we forgot to
healthy
bring up.
relationships, communication.
I was like, wow,
Ooh.
communication, honesty. They weren't doing that in the 50s, man. They really weren't. They're still not doing it now. You know,
I
some
feel like
new
this
shit.
episode we solidified their relationship. Like now they're in a relationship, right? Like before they hooked up, but they didn't kind of speak on it. I feel like now they're like, okay, because she was like, "You're gonna run away," and he's like, "Okay, I'm not gonna run away this time." You know, so
Yeah,
I feel like
I also
finally-
felt the same way though. I was like, bro, fuck out of here, man.
I hope
Like,
one day they do actually
you keep
find.
trying
a
to
bed.
dip. What'd you
Sorry, what did
say?
you say, Mike?
I said, I hope one day they actually find a bed. You know, to
Right,
actually
right. They're having
have fun.
sex all the time.
All I could
I'm like,
think
you got
was
your bathrooms
that
in the
poor
garage. Like,
But I was like, hey,
car.
look at Journey with the
Journey's ass though. Can we have a moment for Journey Smollett's ass? Like, just that was a highlight of the episode for me. I didn't know all that was going on, and I'm very happy that I know now.
This show doesn't like to show titty during sex, but they just show titty in other times.
I don't need titty. You saw that ass?
I know.
I thought it was very respectfully and tastefully done. You know, usually I feel like most.
Rave is like, but that ass though. Mercedes like, it was respectfully done. I like the artistic nature. Rave's like, but that ass though.
I'm like the
They
lighting
have a lot
off
of
that
great
ass.
that ass. Like Atticus,
Can't fake
the other
that.
sex scene was all Atticus' booty because
Right.
it was the other way. So it was like
Right.
ode to Atticus's butt, and this time it's ode to Journey's butt.
I respect the show for that, right? There's equal, but
But
I feel like this show is doing an amazing job
Right.
of like showing the black physique in a way that I don't feel is fetishizing. You know, because I feel like sometimes you watch certain things and you're like, you know, it's okay to make money off our bodies, but let's not tell our stories, you know? So I feel like when we have these moments in the show, they feel triumphant, you know?
and I
They're
feel like they
yeah.
balance it. You know, if you're more inclined towards the female form or the male form, you have the options.
Yeah,
Or
there's,
if you
there's
want
things to look at.
you know, and
I'm with the
any
whole
options you
scene.
want. I'm with everything. There we go. If you like white guys with ram things on their chest, there's that too. Hey,
It, you
you
know,
get that.
Willie was giving it to Ruby on the stairs. Like, come on, guys, let's not even like.
I mean, it
I
all
was like,
makes sense
oh.
now. She's got women's intuition.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
here's my theory. Here's my theory on William. Right, I don't think William is the same situation as Ruby Hillary, where it's like
Yeah.
literally the same person in different skin. I think the Dr. Jekyll and Hyde situation of the episode is on William and Christina. I think it's two different people encompassing the same space.
Yeah.
Because the story she tells about William getting shot in the back, I think that's a true story.
Yeah, I think
I
so
think-
too.
But we don't know.
I feel like
Del,
she
the
made a
dog
deal
lady,
with him
could
in
be
some
dead
way.
in
Yes,
real
there's a
life.
deal.
Yeah,
Sorry?
that's what I wonder about Dell. You know, like
Yes.
is she out in Ruby's skin somewhere?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know with that one. You know, like does the skin need to be based off a real person?
I was thinking that the skin needed to be based off a real person, but they couldn't be a lot because you can't occupy two spaces at the same time, sort of like paradox thing. So that was obviously like a dead body, like especially when she said William had died and then brought back to life. But when
Maybe
he actually
that's
brought
what-
back to life, you were just using his body as a shell.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that whole village is for shells. Like
Ghost in
it's
the
a whole
Shell
village of
village.
people.
She sells
It's just all
seashells.
the whole
Seashells.
village. That's why
Skin.
the village exists.
Maybe that's where it came from.
Right. It's just for that. But I think William's an actual person, like Raven, you said. I think there's a deal. William and Christina have a deal. So I think when William is talking, that's his thoughts and that's his thinking. And I think William slept with Ruby. I don't
It's
think
like
Christina
Professor
slept
Hulk.
with Ruby. Yes, exactly. It's like Hulk. Hulk and Bruce aren't the same person. It's like
You
again,
said Professor Hulk.
Yeah, because when they're merged, it's a very specific
Oh
Hulk in
yeah,
history.
only certain storylines they do that.
Because they're not
Dr.
always
Green.
in sync. So specifically Professor
Yeah.
Hulk.
exactly. Again, Jekyll and Hyde, two different characters. They
Right.
don't like each other, even the story. And I think that's what Christina and William is, because I don't think they just take a potion, because I think something happens in that basement. What the fuck is in that basement? There's something that's part of that whole thing. Leftover questions before we get to standout moments. We still don't know much about the other lodges. We get some tidbits of info as Ruby's
I feel like
walking through.
the chick that Tick is talking to from Korea, I feel like she has something to do with the lodges. Like
of
somewhere
course.
else, like in Korea.
She knows something.
Like she knows something about those lodges.
And I think maybe the lodges go outside of America.
Yeah, definitely.
Right,
I feel like there's one in like every country type thing. Not every country.
because we have portals already, so
Yeah.
space,
That's
like
definitely
distance means nothing, right? When you have portals,
Yeah,
distance
because
means
that's the
nothing.
thing, you know, if you were, you know, you got to think about it too. The same people that are in a lodge in New England, you know, are probably traveling other places. Are they going to want to have to come here every time they want to go somewhere? You know, so of course they would create other portals in other places. So I'm interested to
would
see the
make
connection. That's my theory.
We find out about something called the Winthrop Observatory, which is somehow connected to the orrery. What does that mean? No idea. We talked about this earlier. Why does Hillary look like Dog Lady? You know, what does that mean? What is that all about? Don't understand. It's played by the same actress. What is the full deal with William? We don't know yet. And what do I have here? What's going to happen when Letty and Ruby all come to a head? What happens?
Oh, yeah. I
when they
wonder what
find
sides
out?
they're going to be on. I feel like they're going to be on
Like-
different sides.
Right? Because
But also, if she explains to her, yo, the chick
she
dude
explains
that you're
Raven, yeah,
messing
let me
with
just
is the
explain.
one who actually paid for the house, not mom. I didn't know. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
gonna be that-
maybe Ruby would understand a little.
because it's going to be that civilized.
Have like a come to Jesus moment.
Raven, they argued over stockings. Like,
I argue with my sister over stockings. I don't want to wear them.
I mean,
You know, I feel like you gotta have these discussions, though. You know, but you're not gonna kill your sister. You might fight. It's fine. They're gonna figure it out.
one of my favorite lines, let's talk standout moments. One of my favorite lines was when Christina says to Ruby, William's invitation wasn't an invitation to be white. It was an invitation to be what the fuck you want. I love that. That's the currency of magic, unmitigated freedom. Love that line. Love
That is
line.
pretty awesome.
All right, Raven, favorite moment.
I think my favorite moments are like I loved all the transformation scenes. I just think it was disgusting, but it was beautifully done, and I felt like even
my
just
God,
the
yeah.
sound design, you know, the bones crunching. I felt like this
When-
episode in terms of like VFX and practical effects, and also just like sound. Sound design was like so amazing in this episode. And yeah, Ruby in the alley looking through the little hole, which I got going on in my screen. Yeah, that was my favorite. She's all
Her
steaming.
transformations.
Ugh.
So disgusting.
So
Like
nasty.
that time when she's in the goes into the lift and she's like, oh, I love that part.
The
It
last
started
shot right
getting
before
so
it
gross,
closes.
and she's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
like, how did she get home from the elevator? Like, just
Yeah,
walked
like-
home bloody. Like, what?
Yeah, I also love
Right?
seeing her black woman hips burst out of the white woman hips is pretty great. Because it's like, yeah, I understand the bones crunching. That is a very different thing going on there.
I feel like it would be scary as a black woman trying to get home covered in blood.
Yeah, that was my only like kind of. I was like, you ain't making it home covered in blood.
That's why they just cut the scene. They were like, nah, anyway.
yeah.
Like, we're not gonna talk about it. Yeah, use your imagination.
Later on,
Sadies, do we have a couple of references, all the references from that episode?
Okay, so I guess the standout songs this week were Money by Cardi B, Bodak Yellow, Bad Religion by Frank Ocean, and then Return to Love, Black Atlas, which was the end ballroom scene where we saw Montrose go through his full metamorphosis and become his beautiful butterfly. And then book-wise, this show is called Strange Case, which refers to a strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So that is where we get those sort of references from as well.
To speak on some, the episode had a whole bunch of songs, and I'm sure you guys can look it up.
But I told you about the ones that we felt as a group were most important.
I want to just name drop one song that I liked. We had two versions of one song because I think it played on the episode with the part where White Ruby as Hillary is interacting with other white ladies, because we get two versions of Tutti Frutti. We get the cover by Pat Boone, of Tutti Frutti.
Right. Yeah.
But then we get the Little Richard version of Tutti Frutti. And I kind of like that. We kind of get those two versions of it,
He did.
She can really cut a rug.
Shut up.
She can really cut a rug when she's dancing.
I was like, we've never seen those movements before.
Right?
She got hips. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just getting more and more awkward as the scene goes on.
It's like,
Mike, before we close off, again, we know this show is based on a book, and as much as it's veering more and more away from the book, there are some similarities and differences. What are some of the differences in this episode?
It came with Ruby's reasoning for going back to the store. When she was asked what her dream job was, it wasn't Marshall Field's employee. She actually wanted to be a Sherpa, which is one of the indigenous climbers who aid explorers to scale mountains. She named her
like random.
Which also awesome, sounds but it's a lot more aspirational than a store clerk,
Yeah,
like a black woman. Yeah. A black woman is a Sherpa. Like, wow, that's a crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, go be a Sherpa, girl. What you doing in the South Side?
Right.
Go climb some mountains. Get out there.
And she named herself Hillary after Sir Edmund Hillary, who was one of the first men confirmed to scale Mount Everest. So obviously, she knows her way around that history. But the reason why she went to Marshall Fields was to actually get back at a former employee who tried to pin a theft on her.
Which is book? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, like I don't know which one I would prefer.
Was it as brutal?
Yeah. Who really gets to deserve, well, I can't even do it right now. It's like, but I don't even want to reenact that right now. But I think the episodic version was actually probably more justified for that act at the end than pinning a theft, because we don't know what happened after she was pinned in the book. At least I don't personally. But with this, I can understand.
And that's it for the episode. Like I said, we're halfway through the season. We're going to go to this.
So sad. I feel like there's so much that needs to be addressed.
Right? So much.
But I also feel like our brains are just going to melt for the next 5 episodes. I feel like this was the chill one. I feel like this was the calm.
Right.
Because this one had nothing to do with all the other storylines. So I feel like once it goes back to it, we're just going to be like, ah.
And the season finale is going to be so like...
Oh, yeah. My brain's going to melt out of my ears.
In the history of cliffhangers. So
slowly.
I don't even know how to mentally prepare myself.
No, and there's no time to kind of slow crawl. We just have to now. It's the last,
it's
the
only
final.
5 episodes.
We're like full speed ahead. All engines go.
And I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm excited. And I'm ready to be disgusted and made uncomfortable.
But it's like, how much more can you disgust me? But it's like, I know they're gonna do it. But how much more can you really do? But
hold my beer.
Right? Yeah, I don't know if I want to know.
On that note.
The show is comfortable with making people uncomfortable. I like it.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
I like it too.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Rocket Mike.
Oh, thank you.
My name is English Dave, and this has been our conversation on Lovecraft Country, episode 5. And as always, Raven.
Keep it nerdy.
Peace out, guys.